Welcome to a special edition of To the Point and a year-end look back at the campaign season in West Michigan like no other. It all started in early February with a familiar name from a Democratic family dynasty, speaking in Grand Rapids, declaring his independence from the party of his father and uncles. Robert Kennedy Jr. talked to me about why he thought an independent could win. How are you going to get people in this country to say, hey, look, you're conditioned to vote for Democrats or Republicans, but there's a choice?
Well, I think people want a choice today, Rick. I mean, the most recent polling shows that 70% of Americans do not want a choice between Donald Trump and President Biden.
When his independent run floundered, he endorsed Donald Trump and now may play a prominent role in that administration. Later that month, the vice president, whom we all presumed at that time would be running to remain as vice president, was talking about reproductive health rights as she had been across the country, sounding the alarm about what she said was a Republican plan to ban abortion even in states like Michigan, where voters and the legislature have secured abortion rights in most situations.
So this is a very real issue, and I thank again the governor and the Michigan legislature for all you have done. But do understand, the people of Michigan cannot sit back and take comfort without also understanding that elections matter and that there is a full-on concerted effort to pass a national ban, which would mean the people of Michigan would not be as safe.
But I do want to say hello to everybody. This is a special place to me.
In early April, former President Donald Trump was in Grand Rapids to talk about illegal immigration and the crime that he says it causes. He talked with law enforcement before talking to me about that issue and what he could do to bring the country together. Mr. President, you talked a lot about the border today, and let me ask you this question. In 2015, you came down the escalator. On day one, you started talking about illegal immigration into this country. Now, almost 9 years later, it's one of the top 2 or 3 issues for American voters. At the same time, there are business groups, chambers, agriculture who need legal immigration to keep this country going. Can you, at the same time, take care of an issue that you have been passionate about and people are saying, and be able to bring in legal immigration, which is not just about business, but it's part of who we are as Americans?
Absolutely. We want people, Rick, to come in, but we want them to come in legally. They have to come in legally. Right now we have an invasion, and they're coming right now, as you know, from prisons, from mental institutions. They're terrorists. We have people coming in, the likes of which we've never seen in this country before. They're coming in at levels that we've never seen, and many, many criminals, bad, hardened criminals, and we're going to get them out. No, I want people to come into our country, and you mentioned agriculture, that's right, and there's nobody that took better care of the farmers or the manufacturers than I did, but we're going to let them come in, we're going to let them come in legally. We have to have a process, but we've been invaded by many people that should not be in our country, and we have to do something about it because no, it is not sustainable by any country.
Final question. When this election is over, if you are successful, what can you do to heal the great chasm that exists out there and make people once again believe in their country and trust in the system?
I think more than anything else, success. When we have great success, when we get the auto companies to come back and build, when we get rid of this ridiculous EV, the electric vehicle, where everybody's supposed to buy an electric car, they're too expensive, they don't go far. If you want to buy an electric car, that's great, but you have to buy all forms, any form of transportation that you want, like we used to have it years ago. You can't force them to buy something that they don't want to buy, and that's not working anyway. No, success is going to do it. Success is going to bring them back. And I said, we had the greatest economy in history when I was president, in the history of our country when I was president, probably in the history of the world. And people were really coming together. And we're going to do that again. Success will bring us together. Then came a relatively quiet few weeks in the campaign until a debate in late June that started into motion one of the biggest developments in a presidential race in recent memories. A poor performance by President Biden in that debate had some calling for him to drop out of the race, but he vowed to stay on, at least at first. But that wouldn't be the end of it, not by a long shot. The next shocking moment of the campaign when we come back with a special To the Point. Welcome back to a special edition of To the Point, a campaign like no other. The next big development on July 13th.
Days before former President Trump would accept his third Republican presidential nomination, a sniper wounded him during a rally in Pennsylvania, generating iconic images and a rallying cry for Republicans. 4 days later, at another reproductive health event, this time in Portage, Vice President Harris talked about the assassination attempt for the first time publicly.
In the aftermath of this weekend's shooting, one of the questions we now confront is about the way we should engage with one another in this campaign. On Sunday evening, our President Joe Biden issued a call for unity. And there must be unity around the idea that while our nation's history has been scarred by political violence, violence is never acceptable. There can be no equivocation about that.
On July 20th, the Trump-Vance ticket, fresh off the Republican convention, made their first stop, and it was in Grand Rapids. Just 1 week, almost to the hour after being shot, the GOP presidential nominee was clearly undeterred.
But now we are a nation in decline, and it's a very serious decline. We are a failing nation. We are a nation run by fools and stupid people. We're a nation that has lost its confidence, its willpower, and its strength. We're a nation that has lost its way. But we are not going to allow this horror to continue. We're not going to let it happen. Less than 4 years ago, we were a great nation, and we will soon be a great nation again. With the right leadership, every disaster crooked Joe Biden has created can be fixed, and very, very quickly. Every problem can be solved, and every wrong can be rectified. By this time next year, America's borders will be strong, sealed, and secure.
In 24 hours, this race and American politics would be changed forever. Welcome back to the year-end review of a remarkable political cycle, and a special to the point. On July 21st, one day after Donald Trump and J.D. Vance appeared together for the first time since the convention here in Grand Rapids, Joe Biden stunned many by dropping out of contention for the Democratic nomination and fully endorsing his vice president, Kamala Harris. The campaign moved on in mid-August, with Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance making one of at least 8 stops in West Michigan, where he talked to me about his approach to the issues and the race. Senator, polling suggests that one of the issues that's most important to Americans is the economy. You and the former president have both been critical of the Biden-Harris administration and how they've handled that economy. We all know people are paying more for things here in Michigan. Yep. I don't know if people care about how we got here. My question to you is, how do you fix it?
Well, I think you have to do a couple things. First of all, you have to really open up America's energy markets, because if you drill, baby, drill, that actually drives down the cost of food, but it drives down the cost of anything that requires energy, which is most of the things that we buy and we rely on. I also think you have to invest in American manufacturing. I mean, the offer that we were made in this country for 30 years is that if we shipped our manufacturing to China and Mexico, we'd get cheaper goods and a lot of people would lose their jobs. Well, a lot of people lost their jobs, but now we have more expensive goods, and I think we really have to dial that back. Manufacture more things in our country. That means rising wages for Michigan workers. It also means I think we're going to buy a lot of our stuff a lot cheaper.
Senator, I'm going to run out of time, but I've got one last question for you, and it has to do with the tone and tenor of this campaign. We know that politicians have complained about each other and said ugly things about each other from the beginning of time, but it's been raised to a new art form, it seems, as if. And a lot of people that I talk to, and including me, are just worn out from listening to it. What can you do as a new face on the campaign trail to try to make people want to vote again?
You know, I think that what I can do is, one, obviously I'm bringing a fresh face to the race. A lot of people don't know who I am. I'm only 40 years old, and so I do think I bring a different generation's perspective to the problems of the day. But I think the reason that people are disenchanted with politics is that leaders don't talk enough about policy. They don't talk enough about how, if you have smarter policy, you can unleash America's spirit and actually get this country moving in the right direction again. So that's what I'm going to do every single day, is talk about how we have a vision. Donald Trump and I have a vision that if we govern more effectively, your life is going to get better. Housing is going to become more affordable. Groceries are going to become more affordable. Energy is going to become more affordable. We'll restore some peace to a world that is very much at war. We have the ideas and we have the vision. I think if you focus on the ideas and the vision and not on the personal attacks, then I think that's really how you bring some vigor back into the political process. Look, I mean, Kamala Harris, there's a lot to criticize her over, right? There are a lot of policies where we're going to disagree. And I think it's interesting, if you compare the two campaigns, what Donald Trump and I are saying is, look, these policies have failed the American people. Kamala Harris is taken to calling half the country weird instead of articulating a vision for how she's going to get America back on track. I think, hopefully, most Americans are going to reject that approach because they like a positive vision, which is what President Trump and I are out there offering.
In late August, with virtually no opposition, Kamala Harris became the Democratic nominee for president at the party's convention.
Our nation with this election has a precious, fleeting opportunity to move past the bitterness, cynicism, and divisive battles of the past, a chance to chart a new way forward. Not as members of any one party or faction, but as Americans. And let me say, I know there are people of various political views watching tonight, and I want you to know, I promise to be a president for all Americans. You can always trust me to put country above party and self.
And still, the campaign remained focused on Michigan. Back with more in just a moment. Welcome back to a special edition of To the Point. As the campaign continued in the next 2 weeks, Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance returned to the state to talk about electric battery plants in a stop in Big Rapids. In Sparta, he talked about the second assassination attempt on President Trump. Later in August, it was Democratic Vice Presidential candidate Tim Walz in Grand Rapids.
Look, all of you are here, but how can we not start with the debate? How can we not start with the debate? Look, what was so clear about it was, and again, not surprising, but there was one person on that stage who should be the next president of the United States. One person. She commanded the room, and I know all of us are incredibly proud of Vice President Harris, but let's be very clear. None of us were surprised of what happened there. None of us were surprised. No one has come with more experience to this job than she has, and no one has done more damage than Donald Trump has. So we knew what was coming. And no pun intended, from the get-go, she had the upper hand. Walking in, giving the handshake. Look, who he was on full display the other night. His true colors were out there. Not just his makeup. Not just his makeup. So,
former President Donald Trump was in Walker. Vice Presidential candidate J.D. Vance was back in Marne, and all eyes were on the presidential election. But meanwhile, in Michigan,
control of the United States Senate and the White House run through Michigan. The next 60 minutes will reshape the race. Our moderator for tonight's debate is News 8 anchor and veteran political analyst Rick Albin.
Voters were also trying to decide who they would send to the United States Senate for an open seat. Wood TV hosted the first and only nationally televised debate with Democrat Alyssa Slotkin and Republican Mike Rogers, and again, electric vehicles were a topic of discussion. On a bright, sunny fall day, Vice President Harris made a late October outdoor appearance at Riverside Park in Grand Rapids.
All right, so we got work to do. 18 days. 18 days left in one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime. And as you know, everyone here knows, this election is truly about two very different visions for our nation. Ours, that is focused on the future. Donald Trump's, that is focused on the past. Ours, that is focused on bringing down the cost of living for working families, investing in small businesses and entrepreneurs. Ours, that is about protecting reproductive freedom.
But none of that is what we hear from Donald Trump. Instead, it is just the same old tired playbook. He has no plan for how he would address the needs of the American people, and he is, as we have seen, only focused on himself. And now he is ducking debates and canceling interviews. Come on. And check this out, his own campaign team recently said it is because of exhaustion. Well, if you are exhausted on the campaign trail, it raises real questions about whether you are fit for the toughest job in the world. So for all these reasons and more, we are here because we know it is time to turn the page. It is time to turn the page because America is ready to chart a new way forward. America is ready for a new and optimistic generation of leadership that is all of us. All of us. Which is why Democrats, Republicans, and independents are supporting our campaign.
8 days later, along with former First Lady Michelle Obama, the vice president rallied in Kalamazoo.
There are still folks wringing their hands, crossing their arms, tuning out, saying they plan to sit this election out to prove a point. Well, let me tell you who isn't tuning out. Many of the folks who served closest to Trump and saw the danger firsthand. His former vice president, almost half of his former cabinet members, the growing list of four-star generals and Republican governors and senators and former House members, all of whom are not publicly supporting his candidacy the second time around.
And everybody here knows this is going to be a tight race till the very end, so we have a lot of work to do. But we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is joyful work. And make no mistake, we will win.
October 29th, near Holland, J.D. Vance had a different prediction.
It is great to be here with you in Holland, Michigan, and I've got some good news. In 7 short days, we're going to make Donald J. Trump the next president of the United States. That's pretty fun.
He later made yet another stop in Portage before the GOP ticket, for the third time in as many election cycles, made their last stop in the race in Grand Rapids, this time at Van Andel Arena.
And doing 4 of these in one day is a little difficult, but not really, because the love in every one of them has been incredible, just like this. So it makes it a lot easier. And I want to say a very special hello to Grand Rapids. It's been a special place. Remember, 2016, we were given a 3% chance. You remember, we came to Grand Rapids. I said, how the hell are we going to lose? It was just like this. And I said, how are we going to lose? We're not going to lose. And it was a 3% chance, and then we won a little place called Florida, and it went to about a 7% chance, and then it went to an 11%, and then it went to 17%, you remember, and went that way, and then it went to about a 62% chance, and they had somebody in there going totally crazy. The woman, she became a fan. She was going crazy. Not on our side, on the other side, she was going crazy. But we're in very good shape. I have to tell you, we're way up in terms of the vote. You know, the Republicans are never up like that.
A former president gets shot. A sitting president decides not to run at the 11th hour, and the vice president gets the nomination without a fight. You couldn't have scripted it, but that's the way it played out. Now we'll see what happens over the next 4 years. Thanks for watching. Happy New Year, and we'll see you next week.